Hi good people, Titus here for another Blender tutorial, and in this video I'll show you how to model and texture a simple teleportation pad. This will be a simple tutorial series to follow and will demonstrate the basics of creating a 3D object, UV unwrapping it, texturing it, and importing it into a game engine so we can create some interesting effects in our projects. Let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. Alright, so we have the default scene. Let's go ahead and get rid of our cube. We'll do Shift A, add a cylinder. We'll leave it at 32 segments, and then I'm going to scale it in the Z-axis, maybe right about there. I'm going to press 7 to go top view. I'm going to scale Shift Z to go in the X and Y, hold Control. I'm going to scale it to the another unit over. So now we got something like that. Then if we look at our item properties, we have non-uniform scale, so we can press Control A, apply the scale, and that'll make it so when we add our bevels, it'll do so evenly. We'll tab into Edit Mode, go to Face Select, we'll select the top face, and I'm going to press I to inset. I'm going to go in pretty far, maybe right about there. I'm then going to E to extrude it up. Just do a simple step, maybe right about there. And then I to inset to create just a small little bridge. I'll then E to extrude it down. And I'm going to then I to inset it pretty far in, maybe right about there. And then I will E to extrude that down. And I'll just give it a little bit right about there. Now we're left with this. We can go to Edge Select with 2, or select it up here, and then hold Alt, and just click the outside edge. I'm then going to press Control B to add a bevel. I'm going to use my mouse scroll wheel and increase the line segments. Do I get something like that? Doesn't have to be perfect. But when I tab in object mode, then I got a little bit of a smoother lip just on that first edge base. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to click this line segment. Then I'm going to hold Shift and Alt, and then click this segment, and this segment here. So I got basically the bottom and top halves of the ring. I'm going to ignore the bottom half ring here. And I'm going to press Control B to add a bevel. And I think, trying to decide if I want to, how many segments should we do? I think we'll do it like that. Just something, just enough to catch the light when we start getting into the details later on. So that leaves our basic shape here. The next step is I want to add some metal accent pieces and kind of have them like riveted down. So the way to do that is we can steal some geo from the shape. So I'm going to go 7 to the top view, select face select here. I'm then going to maybe do 4 spaces on the y-axis here. So it'll be like 4 spaces wide for the accent piece. And then I want it offset, so I think I'm going to count 2 spaces up and 2 spaces over. So from the y-axis here, count 1, 2, and then I'll shift select 4. And that should give me 2 spaces before I hit the x-axis. And then I'll repeat it on this side as well. So we kind of have like that general selection. Then what you can do is you can actually hold Shift and then Alt, and you can select a line segment to get the full piece here. Kind of like that. Let me go over here. Just be careful when you select towards the center of the face, so it does the vertical, because if you select closer to the edge, it'll do the horizontal. And then you have kind of this selection built out, which looks pretty good. We can then press Shift D to duplicate the selection. Right click to snap it back into place. press P to parent, or separate by selection, I should say. And we'll select by selection. And then if we tab into object mode, we now have an extra cylinder. So if we select that cylinder piece, we can come into the modifier stack and we can add a solidify modifier. And you can't see anything, that's because the offset is in the -1. So let's move that to the +1. And then you can sort of see it kind of build out. So we can maybe tap up, increase the selection there. And then if you have some weirdness with the shape, you can do maybe an even thickness. And that way it kind of fills it out a little bit better. And I think that looks pretty good. So now what we can do is, in object mode, I'm going to right click, do shade smooth. You might get some weird shading. We can come to the data object properties here. Under normals, there's an auto smooth, check that. That'll fix most issues. If you have the hard ops add-on, you can just press Q and do sharpen. That will fix the normals and also add weighted creases and bevels, or weighted edges for you, which can be helpful. And then like if we were to do that here, like just to show you what it looks like, press Q, sharpen, and then you kind of get this look, and then it adds these weights in for you. Although I don't know why it skipped this one. Let's do those. Press N, and adds a crease and a bevel weight. So we'll do both. Like so. All right, and we'll tab out, and from here we're going to select this piece and we'll do shade smooth, and then we'll do the auto normals for that one. We got that selection set up. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to cut in some interesting shapes on the base pad here. So if we come to top view, there's a few ways you can do it. The vanilla blender way is you can just do Shift A, add the shape you want to cut. So say we do a cylinder, and then I'm going to move that in an area I want to make the cut, scale it down. Oops. Maybe something like that, and then scale in the Z. And then you basically place it where you want it. So like say I wanted to make a cut right here. You'll want to probably shade smooth, and then you can add your auto smooth for your normal. And then if you go to your base object that you want the cut in, you can add a Boolean modifier. And then you can just select the little pipette, drag it in here. And then if you select this shape and you hide it, you can see your cut there. Sometimes you'll get some weird solvers, so you can maybe switch it to fast or exact to resolve. Otherwise, you might actually have to do some geo cleanup later on, which is pretty common with Boolean cuts, by the way. Now, the other way to do it, if we close out of this and we delete this shape, if you have the box cutter add-on, which I highly recommend, you can actually go to the box cutter mode here, select the object you want to cut. I'll go to top view. You can press D and it'll bring up your little cutter menu. You can select your shape. You can select how many segments it has, as well as your solver options that you want set up. And then once you have it, you basically just kind of drag the shape to the size you want, and then you can press G, move it around where you want the cut to be, and then you can grab that center piece, pull it down, and it makes the cut for you right there. You have some other features with it. Towards the bottom, you see all the extra stuff you can do with the box cutter. One that I like to do is bevel, so you can press B, and it'll actually add a bevel based on your mouse cursor. So as I move it closer or farther away, you can see it adds that extra bevel in there. And then if I press enter to lock it in, 7 a top view, looks pretty good. And you'll notice it also creates this nice little cutters folder for you. So you can easily bring back the cutter that you used, and you can select it and do Shift D, and you can duplicate the cutters and place extra cuts around your shape that you need. So maybe like that. Maybe this one goes a little bit further down. Yeah, it looks okay. And then all you have to do is just select your cutter, shift select your object, press Q with hard ops, select difference, and then basically rinse and repeat. And it makes your workflows a lot quicker. You could also do it with an array, like a radial array, and then use like an empty and then spin it around. Takes a little bit of doing with that one, so I figured I'd keep it simple. Then we can hide our cutters. And if you're happy with the shape, what you can do is you can come in and add a mirror modifier, and you can bisect on the x-axis, and you can set up your mirror that way. Or another shortcut you can do is Alt-X, or if you press Q under operations, there's a mirror function. It's also in the modifier stack right there. Or you can just press Alt-X, and it brings up the gizmo, and you select the side you want to copy. So I want this this detail, so I'll click this cube, and it'll mirror it over to the other side for me. Some of the advantages of some of these add-ons is they just speed up your workflow, but they are not necessary. They are optional. So, all right, so we got pretty good shapes going so far. I want to add some rivets, so I'll do a Shift A, do a mesh, and we'll do a UV sphere. I'm going to try a low poly, so I'm going to try maybe 16 segments, see if I can get away with that. And then I'm going to scale it down, and then come to top view, I'll bring it down right around there, and then hold in the X, and scale it down, maybe something like that. I just want it to be kind of like a little rivet. And it's a bit too deep, so maybe right about there. Yeah, I think that looks okay for the size. I might make it a smidge smaller. And then I think I just need it out a bit, kind of in the middle. And then what we'll do is I'll go into isolation mode with /, and then front view. I'll do Alt-Z to go into transparency mode, tab into edit mode, go into vertex select, and I'm just going to select the bottom half, press X, delete vertices, and I can go to line select. I can Alt-click the bottom line, press Alt-Z to come out of transparency mode, and then just press F to fill the shape. Tab out an object, / come out of isolation, and then if I press right click and shade smooth, shading looks a little weird, but you can come back under your object data properties and enable auto smooth, and that'll address most of your issues with it. Then just dig the shape down a bit, and then I think I am pretty happy with that. So next thing we'll do is we'll just press Shift D, and we'll duplicate these around our mesh. Again, I probably could have used a array modifier, pick it empty, and then spin it around. But this is a little more work, but just as easy, I guess. It's less complicated. Plus, I guess with it being a little less exact, sometimes it adds more interesting elements to your shape because it's not perfect. And I'm just using Shift D from top view. When you're in top view, it doesn't mess with the Z axis, so you get even height. So I'm only messing with the X and Y. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's continue and cut out some more shapes. So I'm gonna go 7. I'm gonna select my accent pieces. And this time I'm gonna press D. I'm gonna choose a box. And I am going to make a cut maybe right in here, something like that. I can press R to rotate. And I can hold Shift to get more fine control. And then G, move it right around there. And then maybe what I'll do is if I press B, I can maybe add a bevel, maybe something kind of like that. And then I can just pull it all the way through. So it makes like that wide cut. And then I can press Enter. Lock that in, and you notice if I go back and isolate, it doesn't cut into this shape, it only cuts in this shape here, which is what I want. And then I'm going to do more of the same. I'll just do maybe a wider box cut here, and I'll just kind of line this up as best I can, and I'll press B. And then I will bevel that right about there, push it through, drag it up, and then I'll just lock it in. We're gonna get some weird shading until we clean up the geo, but we'll probably do that in a later video. And then I can simply go through and show my bottom 2 cuts there. And I'll select the first one. And I can Shift D, place that over there, and then I can rotate it around, and then I just have to line it up as best I can, kind of like that. And I think that is, yeah, maybe a little bit off, but we'll make it work. And then Shift D. And then we just have to, our rotation was -46. Let's try 45 degrees. And then let's actually come back to this one and set this to -45. There we go. And I just have to place that in the center a bit better. All right. And then if we just Shift select this, and then I press Q, do a difference. Looks good. And I select this, Shift select the bottom piece, press Q, do difference. And again, if you don't have hard ops, you would just have to select this piece and then add a difference boolean right here, and then just use the pipette to select your cutter. You'd have to make your shape manually. So, all right, then we're going to select this shape, going to Shift D, place that in the center as best I can, and then I am going to rotate it. I think it was on the y-axis. Was it -45? Oh, I messed that up. Hang on. No, it's on the z-axis. So -45. There we go. And then Shift. Oops. I'll do this one. I'll do Shift D. Place that little orange centerpiece in the center of the mesh as best I can, or the area I want it. And then this one was +45. Much thinking about it, why isn't this just 0? That should be 0. So negative 45, 45, and then 0. Yep, that looks good. All right, and then kind of more of the same. We'll just shift select, press Q, difference. And then shift select, press Q, difference. And we can go down, hide all our cutters. And then I will collapse that folder. And I am actually going to select all these spheres. Oh, I missed one. And then I will move these into a new folder called, we'll call it rivets, I guess. That way it's easier, we have a cleaner view. And then I think we'll rename this one to base. And we'll rename this to accent, because I don't know what else to call it. Basically be metal. And then we'll do a quick once over on our shape. And I think that's a good starting point for this video. So we'll pretty much cut it here just to keep it short. In the next video, we'll duplicate our model and we're going to create a high dense, high poly version of this mesh so we can add some extra details like dents and scratches. We'll then bake those details onto a UV maps for our low poly model that we can then texture and bring into a game engine for final review. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.